Good evening and welcome to Red Devils Roundup on the Balls Out podcast. Once again, we are back. We are talking Garnacho sagas. We're talking second bids or third bids for Embuemo and any other transfer news and anything else that the comments take us in. Firstly, as you can see, myself here, co-owner of the channel, Nathan, and alongside me tonight, I'm joined by Mr. Faithful, Mr. Reliable, always around, and 2025 Balls Out Quiz Champion, which is, I've forgotten to put that in his title tonight, but he's here. Mr. Langridge, how are you, mate? You good?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. Happy to be back on another show as always. And it looks like we're starting to ramp things up at last. You know, in time for to make one transfer in August. Let's go.
Yeah, one in June, nothing in July likely, and one in August. But as you can see, once again, joined by Mr. Hannah, making his debut on the Balls Out. He's a regular on the previous incarnation of the channel, but he's back. Mr. Hannah, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's nice to be back. Definitely too long. Hopefully, it won't be as long as the previous time. Sorry for all the letdowns, but anyway, I'm here. That's the main thing.
Absolutely, that is the main thing, and we are absolutely delighted that you are back. Everyone watching, please get in the comments. Please like and subscribe. Let us know any questions you might have, anything you want to talk about, anything at all. Get it in there, get talking, and we will answer as many questions and we will bring up your comments as soon as we get them. But yeah, so let's jump straight into it. Over the weekend, when I put the poll out for this channel in our chat, Mr. Langridge and Mr. Hannah were the first two people to respond. Perfect. And then Mr. Hannah alerted me to this image that I think everyone has seen in the United world, and that is Garnacho sporting a Rashford Aston Villa shirt. I'm going to mess around and save it and bring it up on the screen, but let's go straight to you, Mr. Hannah. What was your initial reaction when you saw that image come up?
Oh, initially I was just like, you know what? It's just the umfla just can't read a room. In other words, everything, all the frailties over the past couple of months, particularly after obviously the Europa League final and basically driven through media in the sense of like Romano every other day saying that he wants to leave and the club are obviously willing to let him go and it's mutual on both ends, and then such a disrespect to the club ultimately. I know people have their own personal opinions and they're pulling out pictures of the likes of Ahmad and a Brighton jersey, etc., but like I said initially, you read the room, like that's not where we're at the moment. Realistically, like he knew what he was doing, or this PR side of things, knew what they were doing. Absolutely disgraceful. Carry on. Like you have a player who was realistically like leaving the club. He's on the way out the door, and this is again this is after obviously all the literally the chance we've given them in professional football. This is it. It's like massive kick in the teeth, but like from my own personal opinion, good riddance and out the door. We don't need people like that around.
Yeah, and it's a massive ego. You can quite clearly see that he's got an image there with a Lamborghini, a Ferrari. He's obviously on holiday in Ibiza, and he's probably wearing £2,000 worth of Balenciaga slip-on shoes there, £2,000 worth of shorts, and he decides to go and buy or get a kit. Maybe it's given to him by Rashford. There is that, but at the end of the day, this is a case of he's kicking everyone in the teeth. I don't know language. I don't know if you saw Troy Deeney's comments on Talksport.
He's one of the ones I've not seen. So what did he say?
So he said when yesterday morning, I think it was, they were talking about it, and he said that as soon as they would come off of them, like their holidays, and they were back in training, he would have probably just smashed into him like in an early pre-season drill, just training drill. He would have just taken him out and said, "What the fuck are you doing? You're supposed to be representing Manchester United." But what are your feelings? We've heard Hannah. What do you think?
I'm a little bit concerned, really, because, as you said, all of a sudden, the old photos come out of Ahmad in a Brighton shirt.
There is a bit of context to that.
If you look at his hairstyle, that's not recent. His hair's
Yeah, and
totally
if
different.
there's also a little. I'm just going to add a bit of context to that as well, very quickly. So that in that video, the short clip that is played of Ahmad walking out in a Brighton shirt, the player in front of him, which I believe is a Brighton player, is wearing a United shirt with
Yeah,
Ahmad
I
on the back.
believe the prior player was Fatty from Barcelona
Mm.
when he was on loan. That was when it was done.
Yeah, so there is context to that particular image. That I
Yeah.
believe that might have been some sort of training or some sort of maybe thing for the brand, whatever brands they represent
Yeah.
or agency they represent. They might be represented by the same agency. I don't know the ins and outs, but there's just a little context to that one. But yeah, please go on.
So then Harry Amas has been pitched. All of a sudden, a picture's come out with him in a Real Madrid shirt training in the off season. You just basically now I'm worrying that people have gone, well, you're going to go into him. I'm going to put on a shirt I've got and take a photo in it. Because it's not a selfie, is it? It's not the arm up in the air and taking that. It's someone else taking a photo. But I look at it from a different point of view, and I think every football fan will understand this point of view.
Mm.
If this was a fan, someone you know, and all of a sudden they put on a different club shirt from the league they're in, we are ripping them for it. We are calling them glory hunters, you know, whatever you want to call them. But it happens. So as you aware, Nathan, I grew up around Brighton. Brighton hit the Premier League. I no longer I follow Brighton, but I don't support Brighton. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
they're my local side, but I'm a United fan. We're now in the same league. Yeah,
Yep.
you always support your local side, but if you're in the same division, you make a choice. That's a respect thing. That's me as a fan. I can respect. Same
Yeah.
as the reason I wear the white of Madrid, because that's when I was on holiday. When I was a little kid, that's what I saw. There was two teams that only ever on TV: Barcelona or Real Madrid. And
Mm-hmm.
trust me, on old TVs, white kits looked immense because of the colours were shit, and white just stood
Yeah.
out. Okay, so I get it because I was probably one of those kids. Not at night. How old's Garnacho now? 20? Coming up to 20? 21?
Yeah, getting like that.
Yeah. This is a photo from behind taken. Troy Deeney's spot on. You smash into him. This shows a lack of respect, a lack of class. But someone pointed it out to me. Rashford plays for England. Do you think he would put on
Could
an
have.
England shirt with Rashford 9 on the back?
Mm.
Being Argentinian?
No, probably not.
No, it's
Because
not
then he'll
happening.
get a bigger backlash. He'll get a bigger backlash from everyone in Argentina.
He wouldn't
Because of
get
all the.
picked. Argentina would literally probably disown him if he went and done that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And that's how I feel about it. If you deliberately wear another shirt, like you say, if he was with Rashford's wearing a United Garnacho shirt, he wears a thingy because they swap clubs. Totally different. Context is different, right? This is the most disrespectful thing you would do. And I'm with Troy doing it. I'd break his legs in training.
Mm.
I would absolutely go in, flatten him until he starts showing some respect. But those days are gone. There is no respect in football. There's no loyalty. There's no respect.
Yeah. So it's. I don't see it as a very difficult thing from a club point of view. You know, this is obviously, unless he's going to come out and say, you know, this was just showing support for a fellow teammate, you know, who's had a decent, maybe slightly above average loan spell, maybe not decent, but slightly above average. There's a very good chance, Mark Hannah, that, or I hope that there's a good chance that two of the players involved in this particular saga, Rashford and Garnacho, are going to be leaving the club this summer. Now, the Rashford front's gone really quiet. There's a little bit of talk and cheek about a Garnacho deal, but would you be disappointed to see them both go in the same window, or are you the same as us, just sort of like, no, just let them go? You know, if they don't want to play for the club, don't play for the club.
Well, like that, if it was up to me, it'd be relatively cutthroat because realistically, like I think that's where we're at as a football club, particularly on the likes of Garnacho, and you can throw Anthony into the mix and Sancho, etc. I'm not saying they're all the same caliber in the sense of they're disrespect upon the club. Like realistically, and again, I know it's been mentioned previously, but out of the three players that I'd reference, other than obviously Garnacho, considering he remained at Manchester United, like who would you buy if you were a buying club out of the performances based on last season? It'd be potentially be Anthony, and none of us would have agreed with that prior to him going. So in regards to fruition, Sancho didn't give much, nor did Rashford. I know people say, "Oh well, like relatively, like he'd half a decent season and the turnaround," but did he really? And the same thing again with Rashford. And I know I'm just going on about it, but like this was a man who said outright that he didn't want to play through the middle, that he preferred playing over the left hand side, etc. And he enjoyed cutting in. And again, we didn't see fruition from the first part of the season, let alone all his off field issues, in which was obviously highly documented. But now he's come out and saying, "Oh, he wants to play through the middle." Like this is a chap who should be in the top end of his career, coming into 27, 28. And we're not getting it out of him. So I'd let him go. I'd let him go as well as Garnacho, Anthony, Sancho. But the biggest common denominator is here: who do you let go, recoup money for? Number one, and number two, can you get them off the books? Because we failed to realise Rashford signed a contract there several years ago, worth what was it, 350 a week or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So it's getting them off the books to again free up the likes of. I know you're going to come in and reference it as well. Getting the likes of Mbeumo in on much lesser contracts that are going to literally work for the club and they want to play at the club. Out of all them again that we talked about, none of them seem to want to play for the club. And that's it's a sad reality of modern day football, unfortunately.
No, you're absolutely spot on. Especially the modern day football. It's a sad reality, and also it's an indictment of the previous Ed Woodward's work. Getting these big players in on big money contracts. He thought it was a good idea at the time, and it's come back to bite us so often. I think maybe Rashford's deal might have been that might have been still Ed Woodward. I'll be right. Yeah. So it's such a it's easy for us to sit here and say we want all these players off the books, and I completely agree with everything you've said. I would happily lose all of them. Where does that leave us in terms of depth for next season? Mark, language.
It doesn't, does
If
it?
if we say we get rid of all of them,
Well, we
where
can't.
does that?
So first off, let's talk about the fact: how do you sell someone that is disrespecting a club and expect another club to go, "Oh, he looks like a good sign, and he won't do that to us." Yeah. So that's Garnacho really just dropped. So I don't know if we'll come to it because it's ex-United. Anthony Elanga was turned down for 45 million today. Yeah. Nottingham Forest said,
Okay, yeah,
"No way, you're not selling him for that." Elanga has better stats than Garnacho, played more games, and to be honest, most United fans would have said, "Now I'd rather have a hard-working Elanga than a promising Garnacho who thinks he's a young Cristiano Ronaldo." Okay, so I had a look. They're very close in stats, but 45 million. How much? And we were expecting to ask for 70 million for Garnacho. 70. That's not happening, is it? So I don't know what we can do. So that's him off the books. Rashford's touting himself like a prostitute to Barcelona, doing Spanish interviews and everything with Spanish YouTubers.
yeah,
Now that's got to be his third or fourth strike with the club because that's not sanctioned. I'm telling you, like I said about the last one, 100% that is not sanctioned. They would never do that. You don't do it outside of the English press for starters because there's no protection to the club. And what he was saying, it's only a 3-hour flight if I'm training here. My family can come. He's literally selling his soul. So for me,
doing
he's done
everything you
nothing
can.
different to
Yeah,
what Cristiano Ronaldo did. You cancel his contract now. You say you're in breach of contract. It's cancelled.
yeah,
We hold your signing papers, and you can't play for anyone else. But we're not paying you. Garnacho, the same. Third or fourth strike for him because of his brother. As Hannah said, it's Anthony worked his arse off to prove he's a good player. And I'm
yeah.
sorry, he is a good La Liga player. And I still think he could do a job at right wing back for us if I wanted to, because I know he will work hard now. We thought he worked hard for us and had no output. Right now, we need hard working players. So you keep Anthony. If there's an option, you can't sell everyone. Anthony, you keep. The only player we can sell and get money for and I hope we don't get too much abuse of this, is Kobe Mainu. Because we're not touting him around. He's working hard. He's getting all his sponsorship deals now with Beats and Nike and everything. He's becoming a bit more of a face. We can get money in for him. We may have to sell him because everyone else has forced and driven down their sale price. So you're right. We're about to go bust in the fact of if we don't sell players, we can't buy players.
And the players
I know there's panels out there tonight putting that out there.
Yeah, well, there's an element of, I don't think, like you say, Anthony really worked his arse off when we loaned him out, and he did really well, and he got really close to winning the Europa Conference League. Well, I say really close. The scoreline didn't say that, but you know what I mean. He worked really hard. Rashford, as soon as they went out of Champions League, he was injured, funnily enough.
Well, that's it. He didn't even finish his season, did he? As soon as
No.
they went out, he got injured. So he's still not improved as a player.
Garnacho obviously had the about not being selected to play in the Europa League final, and then this. Sancho, he's the one that's really only been quiet and not really done anything. And I think that's because he's genuinely trying to find a deal. He's genuinely trying to find
he's got it. Fenerbahce.
Well,
Jose taking him to Fenerbahce from reports, but it's still £150,000 pay cut, which makes no sense. He could actually earn more by sitting at United doing nothing and going on a free and pulling in all the money next year.
Apparently, Man United they're quoting 25 million. That's their price tag for Sancho if they were to sell.
Which is bullshit. And I'll tell you why. We bought him for 80 million. That's 17 million a year. He's in the last year of his contract. He is only worth 17 million at full price. This guy has depreciated in price massively. You'll be lucky if you get 10.
Yeah.
So again,
it's going to be. We'd be lucky to get 20 with add-ons, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Are you disappointed, Hannah, with how the loanees? I mean, we've said Anthony obviously played well, tried really hard, but was you disappointed with how sort of Rashford and Sancho ended up sort of going off the boil a little bit, with their respective loans at Villa and Chelsea?
Even with the two of them referenced, I never seen them come back to play for the club. So, like, from an honest perspective, again, I wouldn't have cared less. I obviously looked at the likes of Rashford and Sancho, considering obviously they're realistically Manchester United players, but at the same time I didn't care what they were doing because I knew generally they'd never play for Man United again within the Premier League game. Like realistically, they'll come back for pre-season, whether in the midst of the first team, like what keeps getting touted around via the media. I don't think they'll be within the squad, if that makes sense. In other words, they'll either be in the reserves or something to that effect. The 23s, 21s. Well, it's not 21s anymore. 23s maybe, like something to that effect. I don't. So I didn't really care. And even at that, again, if it was the case where, say, for instance, if you have case in point, Rashford goes and absolutely smashes in the Premier League, and obviously the European escapades, actually, he goes and actually scores an X amount of goals. I know he had somewhat bit of a fruition between assists and goals, but not to the caliber that we'd seen him several years ago. But if he went and absolutely smashed it, you would have said fair play, because you're just adding on to a potential value that we can recoup for you based on the fact, obviously, you don't owe us much. But now I'm just like, just get him off the books. Doesn't matter. Now he keeps, like what you're saying, flaunting himself to Barcelona. Surely, if you're a scout for Barcelona, you're not looking at him saying he is the answer to our, wing role. You know what I mean? In terms of any issues that we have over the wing, because he won't play through the nine with Lewandowski there, or even Ferran Torres, players of that caliber. Rashford is literally, in my opinion, past his peak. We've seen it several years ago. We had that fruition where it was like he was absolutely untouchable, and particularly in the Premier League. But we haven't seen that player since. And from Sancho, we have never seen a Premier League, particularly not in a Manchester United shirt, let alone the Chelsea shirt. So, they didn't have successful loan periods. not whatsoever. Like I again referenced previously, Anthony was the one who literally stood out, and from Betis he needed to be out of the limelight altogether, in which he was. Obviously still a Manchester United player, but out of the limelight from an English media perspective, where obviously you had Sancho and Rashford saying, "I'm going to prove myself here," and they proved nothing. They were the exact same players that they left Old Trafford. They didn't pull up trees whatsoever, and that's ultimately why, if you put it into context, that's why the two lads, like Chelsea, didn't sign Sancho. People keep referencing it. Oh, it was the wage bill. It was the wages. It wasn't the wages. It wasn't the wages. They weren't getting a player. Rashford as well. Why do you think Aston Villa didn't try to exercise an option to sign him? Because he wasn't that much for them. People again can talk about PSR issues, etc., like that. Like again, player like teams the likes of Man City, etc. I know I'm going off them, but it's like realistically, from a PSR standpoint, he could have sold a couple of young lads that were in and around their squad, and gained value in regards to that, 3 times the value of PSR, whatever it may be, and sold someone like Rashford, in England international. But they didn't, because he done nothing. He's not at his peril, his peak, and either is Sancho. And them two lads, it doesn't matter where they are and what coaching staff behind them, realistically, they will never recoup what they had previously, like the promise they'd shown. They just won't, and particularly not in a Manchester United shirt.
No, I completely agree. I really do. I genuinely think that the ego, and I think it might be a little bit unfair on Sancho. Not that you've said anything bad about like his character, because really he's been. I think, especially more recently, he's been quite quiet. I think he's genuinely trying to get a move, and like language said, it looks like it's a bit for Fenerbahce. But from players like Garnacho and Rashford, it's their egos. It's their egos are really inflated at the moment. They're trying to get moves to Champions League clubs. They're trying to get moves to big places. And it just looks like, and like you just said, Mark, language, you've got Rashford selling his soul to Barcelona, and, Barcelona are not really taking a sniff. They might be talking about it, but there's not been any official bids for Rashford as far as we're aware. And Garnacho we'll bring it on. We'll come up with it now. We'll come on to it now. Is the Christopher Nkunku? And yeah, you laugh. I laugh when I saw it. It's First of all, what do you make of Christopher Nkunku as a player before we talk about the reported deal for him?
I think Nkunku was a good player before he went to Chelsea. I think a club like Chelsea, due to everything comes down to mentality of the player. How are you going to thrive when there's a lot of good players, or are you a big fish in a small pond? I think Nkunku was a good prospect, and then he's gone into a team with 50 players, and he's like, how am I going to get my game time? Yeah, I think it's as simple as that. But he isn't a player you'd swap, is he? He is a bench warmer. And Garnacho is a starter for us. Okay, we're pushing him out, hopefully, with 2 new signings in the 10 positions. Garnacho isn't going to play as a wing back, so he surplus to requirements. Nkunku, he's shit compared to Højlund, so that's saying something. Yeah, I saw it. I read it. I read it again because I was like, I thought April had gone, and I was just like pissing myself. I was like, this cannot be serious. There's so many things. We've been linked with Nicholas Jackson as well from Chelsea, and you're just like, you wouldn't touch these people. Like no one will touch Rashford, Garnacho, and Sancho. We wouldn't touch anyone from Chelsea because they've got the same issues. They got Mudryk now banned, didn't they, for 2 years?
Yeah, bad for 2 years for failed
So
drugs tests.
that's a left winger that they decided let's not keep Sancho, knowing our left winger is going to get banned for 2 years.
Well, there is reports today. Where is it? I've just seen it. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I don't know the player, so I couldn't guess where he's from. Was it Jamie Gittins? I don't know of his. I don't know of. Oh, there it is. Just seen it. Borussia Dortmund's English winger Jamie Gittins remains a target for Bayern Munich despite already having a verbal agreement with Chelsea. I don't know anything about him, so that might be the reason that they've swerved away from the Sancho deals because they've got their eye on this particular player.
Well, Sancho's pushing for. Well, that's what he wants. Everyone keeps saying it, but he wants to move back to Dortmund, which would make sense because let's be fair, anywhere else he's been shit.
Yeah. I can't imagine with Dortmund just buying the other Bellingham, Job. I can't imagine they've got much money to play with in terms of UEFA financial fair play and whatever version of PSR they've got. But
I don't know. They
yeah,
brought in a lot of money. They sold Marlin, obviously Bellingham for over 100 million. Things
yeah,
like that.
true.
So, but and they're
It'd
German.
be-
Trust me, they don't spend and they put it all in the bank.
yeah, I suppose.
I
But
don't think
yeah,
they're
you're
going to
not going to make the
either.
same. Go on, sorry again.
Sorry, to go back in regards to like Sancho, like I don't like they're the, like for instance, if you reference the likes of Jamie Gittins, etc., who they'd signed, and realistically they're going to sell now to Chelsea. Chelsea will get that over the line in the coming days. All right, so realistically, they buy these young English talents, the likes of Sancho previously, or again to reference Jude Bellingham. They buy them at a price where they know potentially that they're going to round that off to an astronomical figure because they're a selling club. So they're not going to
Yeah,
buy Sancho off the back of the fact that he initially was with them. Because realistically, like I said, they're a selling club. They will not recoup money for him. So if they come into United, again, like what you were referencing, Mark, in regards to, say, a 17 million overhaul, they know they're not going to get much market value on him. Like, realistically going forward. Because, again, I know, again, it's my personal opinion, from a fruition standpoint, he's just not there at the moment. And he didn't
yeah,
show it previously when he's at his loan at Dortmund either. He wasn't the same player, and he hasn't been the same player. I know what you're saying, Nathan, about, like you can be harsh in regards to saying that. Unfortunately, particularly with young English players, talented ones that show talent at a certain age, everything, the onus, the emphasis, everything is on them to literally, become this world class figure. And Sancho falls into that bracket where when it doesn't work out, the toys are thrown out of the pram, and then your performance is unfortunately weakened. And that's, let alone anything that's going on again, his personal life, etc. It seems to be the onus is on a young English player. And like I said, they're not going to recoup any value for him. So it doesn't matter if they come in tomorrow with 17 million. Are they going to recoup another 40 or 50 million for him 2 or 3 years down the line if it's a case where he's a half decent season because like he's not pulling trays up like I referenced previously, Unfortunately for him, every Manchester United fan wanted it to walk out and it just hasn't.
yeah,
No, he's spot on. He'd have to be the next Marco Reus in the Dortmund team. He'd have to be. If we're paying that money, he plays every week and he never leaves the club. That's
yeah.
his final club.
Should he have left in the first place? With hindsight
We
being a wonderful thing. If you're
um,
Jadon Sancho now, for example,
Yes,
and
he
you
should have
had
left in the first place. The first time we bid for him, the very first time, not 2 years later.
right,
Different managers, different time. Comes through, under different people, and he becomes a different person. That's my belief. Like every manager's got to be the right fit, and he wasn't a fit for the team he came into. But also, if you're playing as a left winger for a club, and you then come in and say, "I want to play on the right," surely that conversation is had in the very first time. You go, no, it's already got someone that plays there, mate. You play in the right, you play here, or you don't play at all.
yeah,
And if it's you don't play at all, then we don't sign you. So it was at the time, wasn't it? We signed him at the time for English players. Prices were on the high. We'd had obviously the 2 runs in 2 competitions. What was it? Semi-final, final, and then we signed them, and then they've all fallen off.
Do you think the Euros had anything to do with it? So obviously we bought him, and I remember the day that it was agreed because it was actually my wedding day. I had the notification just before she came down, like about an hour before my bride to be or my wife now, on my phone. Sky Sports Manchester United announced signing of Jadon Sancho. So that was 23rd of July, 2021. And then we just, was it the Euros beforehand or just after? No, it was, wasn't it?
Year before.
Year before. So obviously that, no, it would have been 2021, wouldn't it? Because they cancelled 2020.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going even numbers. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it was.
So we signed him just before the Euro started. And obviously that was when he was peak of his powers at Dortmund. The Euros happen. Obviously, you then had the final with Saka, Rashford, and Sancho all missing penalties. Do you think that just confidence-wise battered him?
If it did, he wasn't a United player. That's not the mentality that we've ever signed.
Mm.
It certainly destroyed Rashford. He's never come back from that. So I'm going to say yes, it destroyed Sancho because they probably put their hands, held hands, and group hug, counselling, and if they didn't have the right people around them, all right, get your head up, take the next penalty. Don't worry about that. We'll keep giving you penalties. You keep taking them in training. We're giving to you in the matches. Oh no, we've got Bruno who must take his penalties to get his goal average up. It's I don't think we dealt with them correctly.
No, and I think the abuse that they got in the media obviously was.
Oh, the ratio of but you can't say that because look at Saka. Different people saying
He definitely got abused as well.
Yeah.
I think all three of those players definitely got abused.
That's what I was going to say. Like, as an Irishman over here, we obviously didn't see as much as you would via like the media, mainstream English media. However, like if we were solely to look at Saka in regards to the racial abuse he received after missing his penalty, it's nothing. There's no comparison there between Rashford and Sancho, because they were literally lauded. Do you get me? So I personally don't see that as an issue to why ultimately their two careers were at a demise in the Manchester United shirt. You could turn around and say, oh well, it brought context to it. In other words, but at the same time, Garnacho and the Brian Sancho wasn't too he was very forefront in saying that the shackles were off him and he was referencing freedom, etc., via social media. So does that look like a man who was at the missing the penalty in a European final in 2021? Like that's a man who was literally deprived of motivation and is egotistical and is like, oh, I'm going to show them, and showed us absolutely nothing.
Yeah, on sticking with Sancho, so Gazzetta dello Sport in Italian, in Italy, excuse me, are reporting, I think this was late yesterday or this morning, Juventus are prepared to offer Serbia striker Vlahovic and Brazil midfielder Douglas Luiz as part of a deal for Manchester United 25-year-old English winner. Do either of them?
But I don't think swap deals even exist in real football. That's a FIFA thing.
Yeah, and in terms of other gossip around sort of Sancho on here, nothing really concrete. But I have to say, a lot of the Italian news outlets report a lot of stuff, and nothing really comes to fruition.
If someone's going to offer you a player swap for someone you want out the club, and one's Premier League proven, wants to come back. Alicia Malayman wants back in the WSL as well, which obviously is Luis's missus.
Mm-hmm.
And Vlahovic, I would have taken him before he went to Juventus as a prospect when he was at Fiorentina. So why
and
not?
They fit the model, don't they? So 25 and 27. You've got one that's Premier League proven, sort of getting to the point in prime terms, sort of 27 to 30s. And then you've got sort of still 3 or 4 years away from their prime, but still a decent player in Dusan Vlahovic.
Yeah, well, I'd probably say you get the wage bills identical as well. Sancho's on 350.
Yeah.
Vlahovic, okay, if we give him 200 and the other one 150, it's the same money. So and you're gaining two players for the same money. That's good business. But I go back to, I don't know what Hannah thinks, but swap deals they're like finding a unicorn or a leprechaun. They're mythical things.
It's definitely mythical, particularly like let alone Gazzetta dello Sport. There seems to be you know, story pulled up out of Manchester United graveyard. You know, we're just going to throw like Douglas Luiz in, who isn't getting in at Juventus, but realistically is a good player and showed that at Villa. But as well as that, like I said, it's all hearsay. And Vlahovic, Vlahovic was in and out of the Juve squad there last year, and he was scoring. I'm not saying he was scoring religiously, but he was scoring goals, and that's the type of player he is. That's the type of player we need realistically. But I don't think we'd be, chomping at the bit to go and sign him from Juve either. Just hearsay. Anything that'll get clickbait, etc. From a Manchester United perspective, that's what we'll see, particularly over the coming months, considering we're in the summer transfer window realm. So I would not make much heave of that at all.
No,
Correct.
no, completely agree. Let's move on to what we hope is the third and final bid for Brian Mbuemo. Manchester United offered worth. Excuse me. Manchester United placed an improved offer worth more than 60 million for the 25-year-old for Brian Mbuemo, as Tottenham now target Eberechi Eze for losing ground in the race. So whoever wants to come in, are we now hoping, God forbid, that this is now done and dusted? And are we under the assumption that this is a Thomas Frank not problem? Because I think you said last week, language, that obviously Daniel Levy said we can't afford it because we've just had to pay Brentford all this money for Thomas Frank.
I think it's a hard one. Would I take Eze? Yeah. Would I have taken Eze over Cunha? Yes. Would I take him over Mberno? No, because I think they're two different types of players. One's a in behind player and one's a dribble the ball forward player. But yeah, I think this is it. I think this is done and dusted. I think 60, 65 million. Mberno had a better season than Cunha, so if Cunha's 65 million, he's 65 to 70 million. Yeah, I think that's fair. And he's only got 1 year left on his contract with a +1, so that they can trigger the +1 to increase it, keep his value up. So we can't really negotiate price as much as people seem to think we can. But yeah, I've said pretty much my piece on him, Bruno. I'd get him in. Then you've got 3 players assisting 2 goals a game.
Yeah. Hannah,
So
what do you make?
Let's hear what Mark thinks.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I think it's a real astute signing, and particularly with them 2 players, out of several players that you would have referenced, if it's a case where we could buy them that were Premier League proven, the 2 of them fall in line with that bracket, as per se, such talented players. And me personally, if I had a choice between Eze and Cunha, I'd still pick Cunha. Nothing against English players, but I just think he's just more talented. He's actually frightening. I'd watched them. God, is it 2 years ago now? At this rate, it was the time where Wolves just narrowly lost in Old Trafford, the first game of the season, the Monday night fixture.
Yeah.
And I seen him in the flesh that night, and I just said to myself, "What a player!" And why, no disrespect, but why he's at a club like Wolves? I think Gary O'Neill was at the helm at the time.
Was that where he was picking the ball up in midfield, shrugging players off and sprinting forward?
Literally a freak of nature that night. When you just players every so often, particularly very capable players, have these.
That might have been his. Was that his debut?
I'm not sure now.
Close enough to, yeah.
Yeah. But what a player. Yeah. So look, I'm genuinely really looking forward to seeing him in the Manchester United shirt. The only frustrating thing that I would say in regards to Mbeumo is, again, I don't mean to go off and sound like a politician, but we were promised the moon and the stars from a Man United perspective in terms of getting players in the door. This will be quick. A quick summer turnaround. Number one, considering there's going to be an influx of players leaving. And number 2, we just have fruition in regards to our bidding the players, etc. But it hasn't happened. This is a third bid. Surely, I don't know the whole logistics between clubs, as in how they come up with these figures. But surely after your first bid, realistically where your selling club is at with your second one, not a third bid. If they turn around and refuse this one, I'd literally just move on. What are you going to pay for them? 25-year-old, very, very good player. A lot of years ahead of him. Realistically, the modern day and age, a good decade ahead of him. Not to suggest that he'd be in Manchester United show for a decade. But the point I'm trying to make is, don't let clubs hold you over a barrel. Like, we're not the Manchester United of old, you know. If anyone else goes in from, like, realistically could have been wrapped up and done and dusted, i.e., if Spurs were that astute, they could have went in and gotten per 40 or 50 if he wanted to go. And now we're talking in the upper realms of 60, etc. And again, that's without add-ons. This is only what we're being told, you know. So again, the frustration there for me is, like, we're coming up to July now, like with your reference mark previously. We've signed one player in Cunha. We've, got Tom Heaton in again. He was a free agent, but obviously left the club and signed another 1 year contract. With two players in the door, and again, we will have several outgoings, particularly with the ones that we referenced with earlier. If two of them leave out of four to success, we need more
Don't
players in the
forget the
door.
16-year-old from Southampton.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, we're signing
yeah,
all the big names.
yeah. Well, here,
But
that's it.
Mark, I want to ask you: do you think the naivety of our board, thinking, well, we've got Rashford, Garnacho, Sancho, possibly Luke Shaw, all these players who could leave? Do you think they were thinking, oh, we're Man United, people are going to want our players, so therefore they thought they could get the deals done quick because they were going to bring cash in from these players?
I don't think so. I agree with you in regards. There is obviously a naivety between, our board when it comes to obviously transfers as a whole. But I would reference the naivety is about outgoings versus incomings, and what I mean by that is these players who are there in our squad who have these lucrative contracts that have multiple years left on their deals that we can't get rid of. That's the issue within itself versus someone who has 1 to 2 years left in their contract that we could potentially sell for a decent figure. Like, it's their contracts. It's these €350,000 contracts, the €250,000 contracts. That's why we can't get people off the books. No other club is willing to pay. And the player, particularly, like I know we'd referenced before, Sancho, if we're led to believe what happened at Chelsea was right, i.e., that he wouldn't take a pay cut, that's where we're at as a football club at the moment. And we will only be able to do that if we can buy players out of the contracts. And unfortunately, I don't know, what does Sancho have left in his deal? Did you say reference 2 years there earlier?
1 year left on it.
1 year at the
We
300.
bought him in 21.
Yeah, so 17 million or so, wasn't it? Like, I don't know what the overall figure was. I hadn't looked in the media, but particularly when Arteta came into Arsenal a couple of years ago and there was issues with Aubameyang, the first thing that they done was they backed the manager and they bought him out of his deal and said good luck. Now, I'm not
Yeah.
saying that we can do that with absolutely every player that we want off our books, because we can't, because it's the way of the modern world. But what I'm trying to say is we need to literally be more cutthroat going forward and learn from our mistakes from the previous, owners, as per se, albeit are still there. But I mean, in terms of the contracts, that we're offering players, there has to be a common ground that we literally have to model ourselves and say we can't play players this, because it's just, this is what's happening. This is what's happening when we're keeping players at the club that have multitude of years and they're not giving us fruition on the pitch, and then off the pitch it's even worse. The likes of your, Garnachos and your Sanchos, etc., and your Rashfords, everyone's all in the social media spotlight, just a negative vibe onto the club, between young players. It just can't happen. I know I'm going off in tandem in regards to what you had said previously. I suppose it's just the overall frustration coming out of me because I was born in the 90s. I didn't see it. Social media wasn't a thing. Not that I'm an old man, I know I'm not. But now it's just an influx of absolutely everything. And the other day you just highlighted it. Like I said, Garnacho comes out sporting a Rashford jersey, and all of a sudden it's like, all hands on deck, and he's the worst person in the world. And, I would be very fond to, you know, again, referencing between a friend circle that he shouldn't have done what he did. However, who's his PR team? And is that man that ensuring that he knows, like, he is playing for an English club, and you can't be doing stuff like that. I know what you referenced there earlier, Mark, about like Brighton, etc. But like, I have an 8-year-old, soon to be 9-year-old. My son wouldn't wear a different jersey, wouldn't obviously the likes of Real Madrid, etc., because he likes them clubs. It is what it is. But if he turned around to me tomorrow and said, "Dad, can I have a Wolves jersey, just case in point, or whatever jersey," I'd be like, "No, because you won't be able to come to Old Trafford with me if I buy you one." And then, So,
Yeah.
point I'm trying to make is just have a bit of respect for Manchester United, because realistically, we're the ones that give respect to the club as a whole.
No, completely
Absolutely.
spot on.
you say you go off on a tangent. I do it all the time.
It's
So
because
don't worry about doing that.
haven't been on a podcast for a long time,
You're
mate.
right there, Nine. I had it all backed up in my head.
It's
That's what I
been
was going to
been
say.
brewing for months.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Just remember to breathe while going.
I didn't even bring a glass of water with me.
Nah,
Nine has a big bottle of Pepsi there, or whatever he
yeah,
has.
that's gone. I've had that.
All right.
But
Say evening to Stephanie in the
evening,
chat
Stephanie. Great to see you. But yeah,
So-
it's just and there's not really much else to like gossip wise. You know, it's been pretty quiet as usual. You know,
Well, I said about Inana's apparently turned down a transfer
oh yeah,
approach because, and again, this is on the board. Like he knows if we don't sell him, we can't sign a first choice goalkeeper. But if we do sell him, so basically, if we sell him, we sign Martinez. If we don't sell him, we have to buy another backup goalkeeper. But we've done that in bringing basically a retirement player back on contract because Heaton was retiring. And as far as where he was going to do his coaching badges at United with Johnny Evans, and they were looking to put those two on the coaching staff.
yeah,
That's
which
what
came out yesterday that Johnny Evans is being offered a youth development role.
Which he will be amazing at.
He would be
I'm
amazing.
telling you now, that guy is. We need more of them. We need those players back. That is what we're missing. No shit, no thingy. Have standards and just do as I say and as I do. Instead, we get the complete opposite.
Remember that interview we done? Forgive me ignorance, but I forget the game. And he wasn't due to play, but he played, and he was referenced by one of the reporters after, like, Manchester United is such a big club, and you know he basically said to him, "They were such a big club," and Johnny Evans was like, "They still are, you know, such a massive club," and you know that's what you want in your dressing room. That's what you want around the club. Players of that caliber that are literally like, "We want to play for Manchester United. I love Manchester United," and we'll all have ups and downs like every other club and every other football team as a whole, and our fans will experience everything. But we just want the players to literally hold themselves accountable and have respect. That's all, because that's all we give to the club consistently. You know.
Yeah, and you're right. And me and Nathan have said this so many times. How we feel about the club, I expect the players that put on the shirt, like I want to put on the shirt, you want to put on the shirt, Nathan wants to put on the shirt. We should all have the same beliefs, but football is now a job and it's not living your dream. It is, I go to work, they offered me this much money to turn up, and that's what I do. And you think about, you see videos and that about this all the time now. Why do some people come in to work hard just because that's who they are, and some come in just to get paid. And at the moment, we're in that horrible area of our players are coming in to get paid, you know, and the only way to get out of that is to cut out the cancers out the squad, which we've been led to believe we will find out in 2 weeks now if Rashford, Sancho, Anthony, you know, all these players, but don't go on the American tour, then we can believe the hype the manager's got to say. If they go on the tour, bear in mind it's easier to sell a player if he's playing, but they will disrupt that training session. You know, you only need one player not to run, then someone else slows up, and it all goes out the window. So
It's okay, because if Rashford doesn't go on the tour, he will still be posting videos through social media portal that he's training, so he'll be all right.
Yeah, Stephanie's spot on. Standards have dropped. All about image, haircuts, earrings, tattoos, and bare minimum talent. 100%, absolutely. Oh shit.
yeah, we've got a team of talented players that don't want to work hard, you know, and hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. It is that saying. I literally live it. I preach it when I coach myself. It is so true. You can take that into everyone's everyday job. It doesn't matter who it is. It could be one of the girls doing taekwondo for me, or one of the girls doing netball, my son's football. That's what I tell them. You think they're better than you, but if you work hard, you'll be noticed.
Cool, you're like the Neville of Worthing. You've got kids doing all kinds of sports.
Yeah, Yeah, every day's an active day in our household.
Yeah.
So, but I'm trying to think of any other transfer stories that have sort of come up. The one thing I would like to allude back to was the comment by Rashford on Garnacho's photo.
Go on.
Well, he was the first one to like it and just put "my brother." You know,
It's just it's a brotherhood of.
do you know how hard it is to like someone's photo? Be the first to like someone's photo.
It's obviously he's obviously there's an element of warning. You reckon there's a conspiracy here? I can feel.
Hey, I'm not saying that at all, but I'm just saying the chances.
Was he tagged in it? Was he tagged in the photo?
No, and it was amongst 9 other photos of just random holiday pics. It's only one photo in that
Was it?
out of that 9, and Rashford happens to be the first player to comment on it. That's where my anger came from. There's no such thing as coincidences in the world of social media. Okay, he's got probably 1 point something million followers, but would have all got, like that uploaded.
11.9 million followers.
Okay, 11.9 million followers, and the name on the back of the shirt's the first one to put a liked comment on there.
Yeah.
Bullshit. That's all I'm saying. Hey, it could have been coincidence, but that's what I don't like. As Stephanie says, all about appearance. He's not wearing his shirt. He's the first to comment,
and it's a ploy.
Yeah,
because
the only
we
team
would
who
go
was
to a beat
interested
and
in
throw
Garnacho was Aston Villa. Aston Villa won't want him now.
No, of course they wouldn't.
Aston Villa did not want Marcus Rashford at 40 million. We could have done a player swap for Emi Martinez and they take Rashford. That's a feasible player swap because they have no money. Yeah, or like for like in value. They get a player they wanted and they can replace the goalkeeper with someone else, and they can just got to focus on that.
Where is Rashford training at the moment? He's trying. I can see he's in Marbella training, but who with?
It's always a group. You might see him doing it, but normally there's a group of players. Do you remember last year it was Bruno, Declan Rice? That's just random. So they come in with elite coaches and to get fit and things like that.
Yeah.
But Rashford's been training since the end of the season. But he was injured up until the end of the season. So, but yeah, the Onana thing, I can't think of anything else right now. I thought as we got Mark, we might as well ask him about some of the, striker options and things like that. To get his take.
You go for it.
It's the one that I'd feel would like to get over the line in regards to strikers. For instance, these names keep getting brandished about. For instance, the likes of Gyökeres and Osimhen, etc., like that. But I don't know where they'd stand as a whole. Look, I'd love to have a Premier League proven striker there, but where are they? To getting a proper number 9 up top that's going to score you goals. The strikers nearly like the dying art bar the couple of elite number 9s. It's more or less like, okay, we're going to hang our hat on you to try to potentially get us to a place where we want to be, and we're going to pay an exuberant amount of money for you and hope for the best, and it just hasn't been happening, i.e. the likes of Hoyland, etc. And if it was me personally and I'd had the money tomorrow and who would I take a punt on, I'd probably go for Gyökeres, considering I just like him as a player. Osimhen, just comes with that level of scrutiny based again and around his own PR team, etc., and what had happened at Napoli, etc., considering he was such a good player for them, particularly in their Serie A winning season. That was, 2 years ago now, bar this one. So, and Gyökeres had a serious season for Sporting Lisbon under both Amarin and obviously their new manager. I'd personally go for Gyökeres, but at the same time, I know people would say, "Oh, but sure, he's out and said that he wants to play for Arsenal, etc." Again, I'd say we can't believe everything we read, because you're hearing off a third party. Nobody knows unless the player come out and say it himself. But just definitely going to be I'm fascinated to an extent. I'm apprehensive as well. This is literally, we say it every year, but it has to be a serious transfer window. You're not only getting Cunha and and Wemo in. There has to be several more players, and I don't see Manchester United spending an exuberant amount of money on more until obviously we have outgoings. And again, like I referenced previously, without sounding too negative, it's going to be awfully hard to get them out the door.
Okay,
And we just
so let's
live
be
in hope.
positive, right? Let's
Mm.
say we get rid of Rashford, Sancho, Garnacho, yeah? And Anthony. So say the four players that are constantly spoken about currently. I think there's more. Malacia has been forgotten about, but I don't think you'll get more than 5-10 million for him. We only bought him for 15, so that'd still be a good deal.
I don't think we'll get anything for him.
Sure, people like that. Okay, so they're not going anywhere. But Gyökeres is a player I see coming in, maybe even just before the Arsenal game, because it's not an issue. We can let that drag out because he knows the system. He's not coming in with anything to learn. But if we get rid of all the other ones, and we say Gyökeres comes in at the end, what other players would you like to see sort of replaced?
What about the squad? Oh, look, you God, how long do you have?
Starting 11. If you bring a player in, you're bringing them in to start.
Yeah.
So,
What part of the starting 11 are you thinking? Let's say you've got Cunha and Embuemo in the team. Bruno Fernandes. Is there any other parts of the squad or the starting 11 that you really think we need to focus on getting this for that position?
God, again, like that. Like personally, I like Emi Martinez, but I wouldn't be paying any figures in regards to what has been referenced through the media, i.e., like 45 million euros, etc. Like a very good player, World Cup winner, and done relatively well last year. But like I just again, I don't know how to reference in regards to getting another keeper in, but I wouldn't be paying astronomical money for him. But again, like money aside, I'd be going goalkeeper, definitely a left back. I think obviously Luke Shaw is literally, pardon the pun, but on his last legs. He's just like, I'm just tired of it basically, and I think every other Manchester United fan is like, considering the amount of times he's played for us over the past decade, realistically. Um, Again, furthermore, obviously you're looking at the wingers, i.e., like the left winger position. You could even say left or right, and definitely a central midfield player and a striker. Basically, I'm not saying the whole team because we do have quality there. There is some quality players. Bruno obviously being one or best player. You have the likes of Ahmad, etc. And even if you look at the centre halves, like on his day, Alessandro Martinez, etc., can be exceptional players. However, I just think we need more. We do, and that's what it is. We look over the right back position between Delo and Mazraoui. Mazraoui is very astute and such a good player, and took a lot of fans by surprise last year, based on his like 8 out of 10 performances week in week out. But Delo was like a loose cannon. Would you let him go? I don't think Bruno will let him go. There's an allegiance there from a Portuguese standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
He plays, albeit not every week. Or every week, do you hear me? When obviously Portugal are playing, but he's always in their squads, etc. Players of that caliber. The sad reality is, I think we'll see Hoyland leave potentially on loan. Everyone, we'll say the season before last season, obviously had high hopes for him, but we just need people that score goals. We don't score enough goals, and that's realistically why we have, like, we're signing players off Brentford and Wolves that are teams that realistically had better seasons than Manchester United last year, and we're poaching their players, because they realistically were scoring goals and lesser teams. I'd say not lesser, I'd say lesser clubs, sorry, versus lesser teams. Like you're talking 5 or 6 players. Who to sign in them positions, I don't know. Other than obviously the referencing the lads who had come in previously. Stephanie's right in what she's saying in regards to the commentary, Euro and Heaven in the back three. She's right. Euro, I think, is coming into his own, particularly over the left hand side of the defence. When he saw a shooter running with the ball out, and Heaven, I think, literally, he's not to be slept on. But at the same time, like, I know, again, Manchester United reference it every year, but we need to have a good season next year. We don't want to see another manager out the door. Like, if there's one thing that I'm frustrated at the past, we'll say 11 years, is the influx of managers we're seeing leave consistently, due to the fact that they've come in, it's an abundance of money, it doesn't work out. You get players that are dead weight left behind. Again, Luke Shaw, you can put him into the mix there, considering he was one of signing from a decade ago. But yeah, it's just players of that caliber I think we need out the door. It's a completely fresh start. Like we're not wizards here. I'm not saying come in and next year, come August, other than Bar Bruno, we're gonna have 10 new signings and 10 starters. It's not going to happen.
Well, in
I just
February,
think
you've
that
just
like
said
we
get
need to
rid
get
of
it right,
5.
and that's the main point.
Yeah, get rid of 5
Mm.
players. We're essentially signing 2 new ones. Keep Bruno. That you're basically swapping the entire team, and I probably wholeheartedly agree with you.
Mm.
Nathan, me and Nathan have had this conversation a few times. I asked Nathan to pop up the one about Rasmus because that is exactly what I think. Hoyland, I would love to see him go on loan to a championship team. If we
Mm-hmm.
brought in Osimhen, Gyökeres, and learn the physicality of the game, because I think he's got ability. Stephanie, I might have to bring that up with Jarvis, but you're back in Hoyland because he wants him out on your podcast. But yeah, Cunha and Renault coming in. You said we don't create enough chances. We're one of the lowest passing teams in the final third in
Yeah.
the Premier League, and look how that left us in the league, down the bottom. You don't if you can't pass the ball in the final third, you're never getting a shot off. We shoot from outside of the final third, 25 yards out. Heaven at the back, Euro, so that's no place for Martinez. I think Harry Maguire deserves his spot after what he was last year. Me and Nathan are talking about this. He was a potential captain, wasn't he? Captain material. He showed the way he's come back. Weirdly enough, take the armband off him, and he looks more like a captain.
Yeah.
Mazraoui, I think, probably for me was our player of the season, personally. De Ligt did a lot more than people thought he did. Our midfield is where I want to see a player come in. I'm like you, Dallo. I was told by one of my managers, I now know where he got it from when I heard it in Alex Ferguson's book. The most available player is the most important player.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're available for you every week, that's the most important players in your team because they're never going to let you down. And I think that's the only reason we keep Dallo is because he never gets injured, same as Bruno.
Yeah.
But I'd like to see someone notably from Inter Milan at right wing back. I'm fed up saying it's his name, but as Frimpong has gone, he would be your ideal replacement in Denzel Dumfries. So, yeah, I think that's been a good show. It's good to have someone else's insight in what we've been saying about these transfers and potential players coming in. I don't think striker is as high a priority if we get the 2 10s and Bruno. That diamond playing balls into the box. It's about getting in the box. So I don't
Yeah,
know how you feel about that.
no, I agree with that. But one thing I would say is, and like obviously, I think the majority of Man United fans were their salt to trust the narrative around him in regards to what he's spreading. But Andy Mitten did reference. Sorry, going back several weeks ago that like when he spoke to people who obviously upper echelons of the club in regards to a transfer perspective, that he'd said that don't be surprised if Man United look for 10s versus 9s. So bear that in mind. The 2 players that we have brought in, albeit attacking players, like Mateus Cunha isn't an out and out number 9, albeit very expansive in forward positions. So realistically, what if we don't sign a 9 at all? But realistically, the players there at the club, and particularly the attacking players, need to weigh in with more, goal chances and more goal,
Yeah.
create chances for players next year. And that's exactly what they're being bought to do, considering they've had the 2 players, obviously, that we've signed, or hopefully Mbemo gets over the line. These are players that are literally in the higher ends of, statistics across the Premier League for the past several seasons. So that's exactly what we're buying. We're buying players that are proven in the Premier League, and that's why we need to, push on this season. We're not buying players from abroad in the sense of, that are only into the league and we're resting a hat in them. These are Premier League proven players at lesser clubs in Manchester United that have scored an abundance of goals and assisted, etc., over the past, several years. So look, it's good to see that in regard as well, because when was the last time Manchester United signed a player of that caliber that's Premier League proven? And hopefully, both players referenced it works out for us, because realistically, it needs to from an Amarin perspective anyway, because he'll be out of a job by Christmas if it's a case where we can't turn it around.
Spot on. Spot
Yeah,
on. When was
absolutely
the last
spot on.
time Man United took someone's top player? That's all I'm going to say. I would like to leave it there. Up
Yeah.
until now, we've not taken someone's top player off another Premier League side.
Probably Alexis Sanchez, and look what happened
Robin
there.
Van Persie. Robin Van Persie.
Robin Van Persie, yeah,
Bobby Fam,
2014,
yeah. And what's that
2012.
now? 15, 12 years ago?
Oh, don't make me sad. I feel old.
13 years ago, wasn't it? It's 2012.
2012, 13.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's where I think we're going to leave it. Keep an eye out on our socials, people. Jonathan's back tomorrow with a whole host and array of other Premier League clubs on hand to do a Talk of the League show. We'll be back over the weekend and next week, but we've got a couple of shows that me and Mark recorded yesterday that will be coming to you over the next few weeks. One of them is a player profile on Cunha, and the other is our take on the rising ticket prices at Old Trafford. So keep an eye out for those, and yeah, let us know what you think on those. But until then, I just want to say thank you to Mark and Mark for their work tonight. Brilliant stuff as always. And yeah, we'll see you very, very soon.
Thanks, lads. Talk to you soon.